Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in for this highly anticipated webinar. Thanks for showing a lot of interest. And today we have with us Patricia Mireles. She's a JD Edwards Product Strategy Director at Oracle. And we've got David as well, who's the JD Edwards Manufacturing Module Lead in the Product Management Group at Oracle for JD Edwards. Thanks a lot, Pat. Thanks a lot, David, for joining in. If you would like to give a quick introduction of yourselves, that'll be great.
Yes, hi, this is David Greiner. As Ali said, I'm the product manager for manufacturing for JD Edwards.
Hi, this is Pat Mireles. I'm in product strategies and has responsibility for the partner community. So thank you for having us.
Great. Thanks for letting us know your responsibilities. And we're going to start with a safe harbor statement here. So just take a quick second to go through it. Now, here's the agenda for today's presentation. First of all, we'll touch upon what Oracle's focus is regards to Industry 4.0. We're going to discuss the key benefits. We're going to see how all of it fits together, and especially from where you are at this point and where you want to go. We are going to see an exciting end-to-end demo of right from your shop floor all the way to the actual modules and how everything ties up together. We'll also see a high-level architecture of the solution so that you can identify the key components that you would need if you were to go this path of implementing Industry 4.0. At the end, we'll take Q&A, and you're welcome to ask questions if you may. So first of all, I would like to start with you, Pat. David, if you, I'll just switch on the presentation where you can see David's screen. So David, now you are up there. Please go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Ali. So as many of you folks probably know, JD Edwards is really completely engaged in the digital transformation age. Our investment focus is spanning across 4 areas that you see in front of you, from the cloud, the user experience, digital technologies, and ERP. We actually have accomplished probably more than ever in the past 2 years just to make sure that we're stepping into the digital transformation age and that we continue to embrace real-time, connected, and agile solutions. So some of those accomplishments over the past 24 months really include the ability to have choices for our customers when it comes to cloud, which is the first topic I want to highlight very briefly. So customers have the ability to deploy either JD Edwards on-premise, like they traditionally always have. They can deploy JD Edwards in the cloud, or they could have some combination of a hybrid solution that really supports our customers' day-to-day business needs. So by supporting various cloud options, it really enables our customers to leverage other cloud services to extend and complement JD Edwards. So we're excited to give our customers that choice. When it comes to user experience, if many of you haven't seen, the latest releases of our mobile apps and our tool enhancements like UXOne really allows our customers to be more empowered by having real-time and simplified access, which in turn will give, well, not only give, but improve our customers' day-to-day user experience in a very simple fashion. So as you're about to see from eFlux, we really have deployed enhancements using our Orchestrator solution that surrounds digital technologies. Our Orchestrator solution enables companies to uplift data from like a third-party device, like a beacon or a weigh machine, real-time into JD Edwards. So it's really exciting to know that, you know, you can put a beacon on that heavy equipment tractor that you might have, or you could put a weigh machine on a bin for inventory movement. And as that inventory moves throughout the shop floor and that warehouse, that distribution center, all that information as it tracks through the warehouse could be uplifted in JD Edwards, where you understand, do I have to do a pick? Do I have to do a replenishment? Do I have to order more parts or communicate or notify someone that action is waiting for them? So while everything we do is centered around ERP, you know, our focus is ERP functionality within JD Edwards. And so we are deeply connected with user groups, our partner communities, to help us identify desirable, value value add enhancements that really can be natively embedded in JD Edwards. So these 4 components from cloud, user experience, digital technologies, and ERP is the heart of our investment focus. So before we get into the eFlex part of the presentation, that really is exciting what they're doing today with our customers, I'm going to hand it off to David. And David's going to spend a few minutes talking about Industry 4.0. So hopefully you folks on the line can start thinking about reimagining and transforming your business. Thank you.
So by now, everyone's familiar with the idea that we've entered or we're entering the 4th industrial revolution, or Industry 4.0 as it's called, or maybe you've heard other terms like smart manufacturing. Whatever you call it, there's no question that digital transformation is already happening to bring about what's referred to as the smart factory. As we've seen in other areas, it's very likely that early adopters will be rewarded for their courage jumping into the use of new technology, while those who avoid change risk being left behind. JD Edwards recognized the need to rise to the challenge of this new paradigm, and that's reflected in what you see delivered in the latest release of our software, and also things that we have planned too, but especially as Patty just spoke of, the Orchestrator, originally called the IoT Orchestrator. The most typical IoT use cases within the context of manufacturing would be gathering information from machines to trigger preventive and predictive maintenance, and maybe increase some analytics functionality. But there are many more opportunities for digital transformation beyond that. The real heart of digital transformation is about reducing friction throughout your business processes. By friction, I mean anything that causes any kind of slowdown. As an example, Kanban functionality is something that's existed in JD Edwards for a long time. You might already be using it to streamline production and inventory management. In case you're not, what Kanban functionality consists of is establishing a Kanban master where you define the consuming location, a work center or warehouse, and then when you check out that Kanban, when you perform a Kanban checkout, an order is created. Could, depending on the source type, it could be a work order, it could be a purchase order. It could simply just involve an inventory transfer, but we perform that checkout. That container, along with the Kanban card, is moved to the supplying location where replenishment occurs. And then when we check the Kanban in, the order is automatically completed or received and then transferred back to the consuming location. Now, think about what happens when you add in some RFID tags and some antennas along with an orchestration to further automate that process. So looking at this picture, imagine a material handler back here. These guys, as they consume the components that they need and empty a bin, they drop it in this gravity feed rack. Down to here, the material handler picks it up. As he moves away from the consuming location, it's automatically checked out. When he brings the full container back, automatically checked in. So this is actually 2 orchestrations that are delivered out of the box. I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation now over to Ali, who will show how other devices can be integrated with JD Edwards to create a true and complete smart factory.
Sure. Thanks for that, David.
Mhm.
So before we get to the actual demo, I would like to first of all kind of explain, which a lot of people are a little confused about, how this digital transformation and Industry 4.0 kind of coexist with what they already have in terms of the on-prem ERP. So most of the folks here on the call, they either would have an on-prem ERP, or they are in the process of implementing that. So these the core modules that JD Edwards has in terms of financials, manufacturing, supply chain. These are the modules that most of the industries and companies have perfected for their proprietary processes over years, if not decades. So it's would be a crazy idea that you go for that next shiny toy and implement that without realizing how it needs to coexist and integrate with what you already have. So we'll start with the base as a starting point, which most of the customers are at. The other aspect is the digital manufacturing, is what entails these sort of Industry 4.0 components, which is production monitoring and rule-based alerts and predictive management of your whole supply chain as well as production floor. The other key component, which I would like to highlight, is that of digital intelligence, which has this capability of using that sensor data, using Internet of Things, analytics, big data, machine learning, and put AI on top of it to actually utilize both your ERP data as well as the actual shop floor data to make some predictive decision making based on that. Now, the critical thing is, when you talk about a digital transformation initiative, you've got to make sure that you are working in these overlaps, in these intersections, because this precise intersection right here is where the most value can be derived with the maximum ROI, because you're leveraging on all the costs that you have. This is what we like to call as a digital transformation backbone. Here, what you utilize is all the great technology like Orchestrator and AIS and business services, and orchestrate these integrations and these kind of agile workflows that can leverage both the on-prem, can leverage all your sensor data and your actual factory floor, and utilize all these IoT and big data sort of technologies together and weave them in beautiful orchestrations that make best sense and highest ROI for your company. This is precisely where eFlex is positioned, and this is how we marry these different worlds together by being a high value, a high velocity integrator of these sort of technologies. So what exactly is Industry 4.0? So in terms of trying to define that, it's basically a connectivity of the whole network of value creation. What that basically means in terms of a production, a company that produces something, is all the way from the production planning to the production and assembly, to the quality assurance, all the way to packaging and logistics. Everything in between has to create the value creation within this network. If you can connect all that together, that's how you create a high velocity integration, which is absolutely high ROI. So the key is to synchronize both the digital and physical value streams from the production floor all the way to the ERP. And we'll see a different view of the same thing here. So when we talk about cyber physical systems, your ERP and cloud applications and SaaS applications and your orchestrators, these are all the cyber world, right? And then you have a physical business to run, your physical factory, which has all its challenges. Now, if you can create a digital twin, if you can make these two a digital twin, which is every asset and every work order step can be a digital twin of each other. And how is that going to happen? It's definitely going to happen through some real-time orchestration and integration. And that's where the JD Edwards Orchestrator tool, as we'll see further in the demo, becomes so powerful and so important in this whole scenario. So how that orchestration and integration can connect your physical assets as well as your work order steps together. So how they can together connect both of them, and you can derive some value out of it. Now, there's some key aspects of Industry 4.0, how you define whether your factory or your system is Industry 4.0, which is a natural thing that interoperability has to play a critical role for that. The information transparency has to be there. So whatever happening on the floor has to be reflected in the ERP. Technical assistance, so that machine learning and intelligence that your equipment now has should be able to assist the humans, and especially in conditions which are which could create some safety hazards. those sort of conditions, the equipment can make its own decision making, which is decentralized. And this is possible today because of all the connectivity we're talking about. So the key benefits really are productivity, efficiency, quality, and innovation. Now, let's see what Industry 4.0 is not. I mean, we've, like David was telling, for the, in the Industry 3.0, where there was all the connectivity between the systems on the floor. Like the PLCs have been around for decades. I mean, these sensors and these connectors have been around for decades. This is not really Industry 4.0 if you are tracking your manufacturing process at a batch or a lot level. Like if you have 2 shifts in a day, and after the end of each shift, if you are taking account of your inventory, if you're taking account of what went wrong, you're losing a lot of money already. And if you're tracking it on a lot level or on the batch level, that's not cutting it out, right? Because you're making manual entries. It's not real time. You're making some batch integrations. So even if you've used some business services out there, it's still not cutting it out. Why? Because first of all, you're doing a manual entry at the end of the batch. Your inventory adjustments don't exist in the real time. You're manually hand keying the data into your quality manager module inside of the ERP. And basically, your shop floor and the ERP are out of sync pretty much whole of the day. Maybe at the end of the day or end of the shift is where you kind of do some guesstimates and update some of the stuff in there into the ERP, which is not in sync. So obviously, this error prone and there's no real-time production monitoring. Let's see what really is Industry 4.0 in terms of JD Edwards context, where the edge is connected to the enterprise. So the same floor, same set of connectors and PLCs. The difference is that now you're tracking everything at the work order step level. I mean, everything is being managed, being quality tested, being rerouted in the real time. So the batch tracking is happening, but it's being consolidated from the work orders and work order step at each level. And that is possible through that real-time orchestrator, which we'll keep referring to as we move forward. The other key component, which most of these companies have, which is a manufacturing execution system. You have softwares like Brill and others. In different industries, they are different. The key use for them is to be the production controller, being able to sync the production schedule, the production the formula for that work order, and reflecting that to control these equipments. And if this orchestrator and this manufacturing execution system can be brought into sync together, you can even start to imagine the value that can bring in terms of real-time visibility for you. So obviously the real-time update is going to happen at the work order step level, which is extremely important because you're not going to lose out if some equipment was faulty or creating a bad product. You can quickly reroute it. You can quickly flush it out, not wait for the whole batch to be destroyed. So you can make the accurate inventory adjustments. All the testing data for inspection and everything is being reflected automatically. So if there's an engineering change request or engineering change order that has to be done, that can be done right instantly, not wasting all your time and money and resources on it. No manual updates, everything is in sync, and there's a real-time production monitoring. So we'll take the same example here and kind of elaborate a little bit further, and we'll follow this whole process to the end. So here you see, first of all, I'll just highlight some of the areas that we're going to discuss within that. So it is going to flow like this, and then like this. Okay, so this is starting from receiving the inventory, the spare parts from your supplier, and all the way shipping it down to your customers. So let's see some of the key components here. I'm going to keep highlighting some of that. So first one is your actual physical shop floor. Let's see what exactly exists there. So this is your production line. Within the production line, there could be those PLCs and sensors data that are already connected, or you might deploy some of those. And we can recommend quite a bit on that as well. Now let's zoom into that production, the hardware piece. So you've got this Ethernet controller that needs to connect with all your, you could use a Raspberry Pi. There are different PLCs from Allen Bradley's and many others that you can connect with your Ethernet, provide the Ethernet connectivity, and then there's a reader module for your operator to also be in the play in case they have to manually intervene in some of this. Now let's look at the JD Edwards modules that are relevant, which are most relevant for this scenario. So the inventory management is obviously important because you're getting all the supplier inventory in there. You've got manufacturing work orders, Kanban management that Dave touched upon. You've got a quality management, and you've got shipping, pick slip, and tracking, and all that. That we'll take a quick look at. Now, I'll pass through real quick on this, but this is just to give you a context of what a common shop floor process looks like. You create work orders, you create routing and part lists, you make some commitments on the resources, you check availability, you issue inventory, you schedule the work, and you then record the hours and quantities as the production process flows. And then at the end of it, you post the completion and you mark the finished goods ready to be picked up for that against the sales order that you might have received. The ecosystem within ERP, most of you would be aware, and this depends a lot on what configuration you are using, which industry you are in. All these different modules, they connect with shop floor in order to make this whole thing work end to end. But we're not going to deep dive into any of them, but rather we'll go back to our demo and understand the most important component, if I may say, which is the JD Edwards Orchestrator right here. Now, to elaborate the orchestrator here, there's orchestrations. These are key modules for the orchestrator. So you've got orchestration, which is kind of a lightweight workflows that basically are able to call the REST APIs on the AIS server. So orchestrator itself is a component of the AIS server. So you have service requests, the AIS requests that can then in turn invoke the business processes within E1, and also some Java applications if you had some custom stuff there. Plus, there's a whitelisting. You don't want all the equipments in the world to hit your AIS server, so you obviously whitelist which devices against what serial numbers are allowed to send what sort of data. Then you define rules, and this is important because for agile decision-making and rerouting of stuff, you've got to define those thresholds for those IoT data, sensor data that you're collecting and what to do with them. And then last but not the least important is the cross-referencing. So whatever equipment ID and that you're receiving, you've got to cross-reference to your existing E1 tables to make a contextual sense of everything. Now, looking what the orchestrator looks like, this is a sample orchestration here, where the reading from the shop floor is being read and being passed on to the actual work order. So there could be many different ways of mapping it. You can map just the readings, you can map the actual inventory quantity, so on and so forth, depending on your process flow. There could be a different sets of orchestrations that you could put together. But we've put together a few here just to kind of give you an idea of how this particular production line is going to work. The last piece here to understand before we jump through the flow is the manufacturing execution system. The key components here is a formula manager, a production controller. So all the PLCs kind of terminate onto this, and then it controls the flow of how things are going back, the process interlocks, how they're scheduled, how the dependencies are. If something goes wrong at step number C, what do you want to do at step number D, or what you want to do at step number A? Do you want to flush out the inventory that got accumulated in the first tank if there was something going wrong in the third, or do you just keep it moving? So those sort of decision making and execution of it is basically taken care of by the MES. Now let's look at the R flow. So here you have a supplier, you've got some raw material from the supplier, and we're going to keep it generic. So it could be valid for your discrete manufacturing, it could be valid for your process manufacturing. We just kept it generic so that all of the audience here can relate to it, and we can do a deep dive one-on-one for further discussions down the line. So here you're receiving the inventory, and obviously inventory management kicks in. As part of the work order, you're associating within the work order, you're associating the inventory to it, making commitments for that inventory. The next, and here it's the actual, JD Edwards module, so the part list that you're going to make available for that work order, and you can create that orchestration, which can, maybe put a counter sensor from the delivery truck as it comes out. You can, note down the readings and pass it on. Now, the other thing you need to do is once you actually test it out or weigh it, so there's a purchase order against which you received some inventory, and maybe you didn't count it at this step. Now, this will be a critical step where you need to adjust the inventory as to how much actually got received. You could have some weight sensors in there, and those weight sensors, what they're going to do is they're going to adjust the inventory against that particular work order. So you can adjust that, and then once you've gone through that, next step is the production and assembly, and we've broken that into two pieces. One is production and the other is assembly. Now what we're looking at is the production process. Obviously, they can be much more complex than this. You just oversimplified it. There could be multiple spare parts being manufactured in parallel. There could be some other work order steps going on. We just oversimplified, as I said. So what we've got is a routing profile and part list that are being issued against that production process. The hours and quantities need to be recorded. So right now, what happens is usually that you kind of note it down either on a separate siloed system, and then you hand key them at the end of the batch. what's happening here is the real-time data of that machinery, of the equipment being utilized, or fuel being utilized, or the man hours being utilized, are being sent out directly through that orchestration, as we'll quickly see here, right inside of, again, the work order. The next step is the assembly line. Now, on the assembly line, you could use all sorts of different models. So you could use a Kanban model from that perspective, that how much of your spare parts are being utilized and how much of the end products are being produced. You could update the Kanban card here, or there could be many different configurations. We've just taken a very simple example right here, just to show you, give you a quick idea. The other step here is basically the quality manager module. Now here things start to get really exciting. Now, the quality manager module, those of you who might have utilized it, in 9.1, I think it was 9.0 or 9.1, it was actually just on the work order level. So you could define tests just on the work order level. You couldn't really define tests at each of the work order step level. Now it's, with 9.1, it also allows you on the work order step. So every quality test that you define in the quality manager can be associated to the particular work order step, right? And any testing that you're doing in the inspection line, all that test data, pass or fail, can be synced back into your quality manager module. And based on that, you can take decisions as to reroute the order, do a change request, or whatever at that point in time. Now, after that, let's take a quick look at the quality test that you can define here. As you can see, you can define it right here against each order and step. And you can, all the test data can get recorded in the real time using, again, an orchestration that can do that. The next step is packaging, right? So you've got a packaging conveyor here. You can have accounting sensors, and it's going to update the item master. So the key here is, all through the process that you've seen so far, there was minimum to no manual intervention in terms of recording the actual, happening on the floor. Everything was being done automatically by that IoT by that JD Edwards orchestrator, by utilizing all that sensor data and readings. The packaging process updates your work order completion details, and as you kind of you can have a discrete packaging, or you could have maybe a baggage of a chemical, or a can of chemical, or a tank of chemical, whatever the end product might be. So you could have that end finished product ready for the final quality assurance. Then again, at this point, you've got the quality sensors and the ability to reroute the work order again. And you could utilize the manufacturing execution systems, process interlocks, all throughout this process. Maybe more so at the final QA. If something that was faulty, you could just throw it out and send it back to the production line, maybe to fix it, or whatever your process is. Last but not the least, once you have done this quality assurance process, the last step is basically the inventory updates and the pick slip. So once the finished products are ready to be shipped against the sales order that you receive from the customer, you can simply go and highlight. You can count all that final shipment, update your inventory, and generate the pick slips directly from your ERP, ready to be printed out for the carrier to take it over. Now, the best thing that JD Edwards has been doing, amongst many other, is the UXOne application. So now with your UXOne dashboards, especially the UXOne Production Manager dashboard, today it shows you all the data that it has in its different various production applications, right? Now with this connectivity, just imagine these dashboards to really come alive in the real time. So as things are being pushed on from the orchestrators, you could see these charts really literally moving in the real time, and you could be taking those red flags and those threats being generated in the real time and taking control of the complete situation. So that can give your and you could not just do it within the same branch plant. You could have a centralized production monitoring teams who could be actually monitoring multiple branch plants at the same time that might be across the different states within the country. High-level architectural overview, although there could be many different configurations here, but on the left side you see different JD Edwards modules. On the right-hand side you see all the different capabilities that are available through Orchestrator and through other technologies. And as I said, the AIS plays a very critical role in terms of making those integrations possible and seamlessly. Business services might still be required in case you want to do a two-way communication, in the sense that you want to trigger something from within your ERP or control something from there. So the AIS two-way orchestration, we've actually built a component for that too, which basically is able to trigger a request from in a reverse direction, which is something really interesting, and a lot of customers are looking for. So the key challenge is really, to sum this up, so the key challenges here is obviously data security is one key challenge, right? You don't want to get anybody hack into some of those production lines. You got to have a high degree of reliability and stability, because remember, before you were kind of assuming that values are not going to be correct, but now it's basically you're going to be blindly trusting the data that is coming in, because that's coming in from the real production directly in real time. So you got to make sure that reliability and stability is there, physical worlds, so that nobody can start questioning it or discard that sort of technology. Maintaining the integrity of the production process is important. So because there's going to be less of a human oversight, you've got to make sure the integrity. These different people would be doing just to record data on a notepad, and then then obviously there's going to be a data migration soft launch and the actual launch. Now, the support and maintenance would be as part of the full contract, but then again, we are open for a Q&A now. So that's pretty much it from my side. If you have any questions, we would like to take them up.
Hey, Ali, you actually lost some audio during your last slide or two.
Okay, so which slide did you?
Seems to be okay now, yeah.
Okay, so did I cover this one all right, or should I repeat this one?
I would repeat that one.
Okay. Right, so I think my audio got lost on you guys for a bit, so I'll just quickly repeat just a little bit last few slides here. So referring back to the production process here, so we saw this whole flow work from the point we got the data from the suppliers all the way to weigh the data and then actually produce it, assemble it, and doing the testing, inspection, everything, all the way down to the final point where we are shipping it against the sales order, right? So we saw how Orchestrator automated all of that end to end. This piece is critical that I wanted to show, which is the UXOne Production Manager. So your JD Edwards 9.2 comes with UXOne, as you are aware. And this technology is amazing in the sense that it gives you so much insights and wonderful reporting on all the pre-application data that you have. Now imagine this sort of connectivity with the Industry 4.0, that the demo that we showed you. When that data starts coming in the real time, all these charts that you see right here, they are going to really come to life. All of this is going to be updated in the real time. Not just that, you would also have the capability of not just monitoring one branch plant, but you could just select the branch plant all across the nation in different states, in different lines that you might have, different production lines that you might have, and can monitor them from a centralized location by having that sort of a WAN connectivity of your shop floors using Orchestrator. So this becomes absolutely powerful. Then I discussed the high-level overview of the architecture components. So on the left side, you see JD Edwards modules. On the right-hand side, you do see some of the capabilities that are being delivered by those different technologies I showed you, and some of the integrations that we've made using those technologies. AIS is a critical component here because it gives you access to each and every module inside of JD Edwards through the REST APIs, and Orchestrator depends heavily on the AIS services. So anything that is happening on the shop floor and being connected in the real time to your JD Edwards modules is what we basically call a true Industry 4.0, which is all the way from the edge to your enterprise, because then you can attach all the business intelligence on top of your ERP, and then have all that historic data of your suppliers. What sort of quality batches you receive from what suppliers. So imagine the sort of database you're going to create, and sort of negotiation power you're going to have in terms of your procurement. So end-to-end visibility really from your supply chain, production floor, test data, rerouting all of that together by using these technologies here. So finally I discussed some of the challenges here. These are self-explanatory, but I'll just quickly skim through them again. So we talked about data security being a huge concern. There has to be a high degree of reliability and stability, because now what you are doing is you're not doing any guesswork, right? So you are actually taking real data in the real time and reflecting into your ERP. So there, if you make it reliable and stable, you can really trust them on 100% level, right? So you got to make sure that reliability and stability are important. The integrity of the production process, because there's going to be less human oversight, you got to make sure that things are working properly. You have different compliances in place and stuff like that. There is one political downside as well. There's going to be, the human jobs are going to be replaced by some of this, but obviously you can retool your people to be able to utilize the data that is going to be created and do some intelligent decision making based on that. So they can really, you can really make them do some high value work. And finally, you have to, for production outages, ensure production outages, you have got to make sure that you are, taking all the right hardware and all the right connectivity and ensuring that there's no downtime on that. And finally, I told you how you can, get started with such an initiative. So we can have a one-on-one demo for different industry scenarios that you might be looking at, and we could work out a proof of concept. And if we end up signing a contract, we can then further, do the end-to-end implementation for you for this digital manufacturing solution. So that's pretty much it from our side. We would like to open up for the Q&A, and here are the contact information. You can reach out to me and to John with regards to this specific Industry 4.0 solution that we're talking about. So if there are any questions, we'd love to have it. Pat, if you have any comments, or David, if you have any comments, we would love to hear from you as well.
Sure, I would wrap it up in saying that I really recommend that our customers review our latest release 9.2. You did a really good job, Ali, of showing true digital transformation in the manufacturing space. But customers can have a chance, if they have a chance, go look at our 9.2 release and all the functionality that we're offering. And the best place of source of information is our learnjde.com website. And then more importantly, if you're intrigued, you can deploy a 30-day free trial edition of our 9.2 release. And it's really simple to install and spin up a sandbox on the Oracle Cloud. So I would encourage our customers to do that if they have the capacity.
Sure. David, do you have a comment?
I would just add that you had showed that production manager page. It's good to know that those pages are now easily composed via what we call the page composer by even a business analyst to include pretty much anything that you want to include on a page like that, including external information from external sources.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, we have one question here. So the first question is that what sort of PLC or hardware is compatible with JD Edwards? So a simple answer is there's nothing to do. The hardware has nothing to do with the compatibility itself. All the standard hardware are compatible. the different PLCs from companies like Allen Bradley and Brainboxes and all those that you see out there, and you might already have them deployed already. They're all going to work pretty much seamlessly. So there's going to be some ladder logic that might have to be modified a little, and more importantly, they might have to be integrated to the Orchestrator software. So feel free to reach out for those scenarios. We are, we have a very high expertise on integrating some of those things together. If you need help with the PLC programming itself, we could help you on that and how to integrate that with the JD Edwards Orchestrator and onwards to the applications and back. So it doesn't really matter which hardware we're talking about. It's just about how you interface it together. Okay, we'll just wait if we have another question. Okay, so thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks for your participation. You've participated. You've shown a lot of excitement for this webinar, and we do see that a lot of you have joined in here. So thanks for joining in, and looking forward to working on some of the initiatives that you might have within this. And thanks, a big thanks to Oracle for joining us in. Thank you so much, Patricia. And thanks you so much, David, for joining us in on this really exciting topic and for giving all the insights that you did. Take good care, everyone.
Thanks, Ali.
Yeah.